Dear students, now we are going to discuss about how do we measure the rate of transpiration. There is an experiment. This is as far as practical examination is concerned. This experiment is very important. As well as theory as well. This is very important. This is called Gannon's photometer. This Gannon's photometer will be helping us to measure the transpiration rate in plant. Gannon's photometer is to measure the transpiration indirectly. In this, the amount of water absorbed in the measured and assumed that this amount is equal to amount of water transpired. How much amount of water is absorbed by this plant will be equal to rate of transpiration. So this apparatus is consist of a horizontal graduation tube with two taper ends. One end is narrow, another end is broad. The broad end which will be having a one more rubber cork, we can able to insert a twig of plant inside. The other end, a small opening pore will be there, that should be kept in a beaker containing colored solution. This is having a reservoir at the center. There is a screw. With the help of this screw we can able to adjust the movement of water here and there. So this is a setup which will be available. So usually the apparatus consists of a horizontal graduated tube which is bent in opposite direction at the ends. One bent end side is wide, a broad, wide end. The other one is a narrow. The one on the other end is narrow. A reservoir is fixed to a horizontal tube near the wider end. Near the wider end, there is a reservoir is kept. A twig, a small branch of plant like a balsam plant, to be fixed in the wider arm through a splitted cork. The other bent end of horizontal tube is dipped into a beaker containing colored water on the right side. An air bubble is created or introduced into the graduated tube at the narrow end. Keep this apparatus in bright sunlight and observe. As the transpiration takes place, the air bubbles will move towards the twig. This air bubble will be moving from this twig. So we can able to measure the distance. So how much amount of water is absorbed from the beaker, which will be equal to that amount of water is evaporated through the plant leaves. Thus the rate of water is absorption is equal to rate of transpiration. Another one method we can use to measure the rate of transpiration. This method is called cobalt chloride paper method. So through the cobalt chloride paper method, we can select a healthy dorsiventral leaf. Dorsiventral leaf means the leaf is having upper side and lower side. That leaf should be clean, both its upper and lower surface with dry cotton. Now place a dry cobalt chloride paper strips on both sides. Immediately cover the paper with a glass slide without any movement. It will be observed after some time that the cobalt chloride strip of the lower epidermis turns pink color. So wherever the pink color is appear, that means it is evaporated water is absorbed by the cobalt chloride. This indicates that cobalt chloride becomes hydrated. That means after adding water it has become pink. Due to water vapor comes out through stomata. The rate of transpiration is more on the lower surface than the upper surface. So with this we can able to understand that the transpiration takes place more through lower side of the leaf than the upper side. Generally, The transpiration process is an evil process. Why it is an evil process? The plant is absorbing water. More than 95% of water is evaporated outside through the transpiration. Then what is the use for the plant? That's why this is evil process. But even though this evil is necessary, that's why transpiration is called as necessary evil. They will be asked in 3 mark question. Why transpiration process is called as necessary evil? According to Curtis, because of the transpiration, the uptake of water takes place. So ascent of sap or the water and mineral salts are taken place through root, through the xylem only due to this transpiration. Without transpiration, this process might not be takes place. So that is why, even though the water losses takes place, the same kind of water is absorbed from the root as well. That is why it is necessary evil. So transpiration leads to loss of water. As stated earlier in the lesson, 95% of absorbed water is lost due to transpiration. Almost it seems to be an evil process to the plant. However, number of processes like absorption of water, ascent of sap, and mineral absorption directly rely on the transpiration. So, moreover, plant withstand against the scorching sunlight due to transpiration. Hence, the transpiration is necessary evil. Now we are going to see next concept is translocation of organic solids. So far we have discussed about only water. Now we are going to see about translocation of organic solids. Usually leaves synthesize food material through the photosynthesis and store in the form of starch. Whenever the starch is converted into simple sugar, whenever the plant require, the starch may be converted into simple sugar. They must be transported to various parts of the plant system for further utilization. However, the site of food production, that is leaves, and the site utilization are separated very far away. Suppose the leaf is preparing food materials during photosynthesis. So the leaf is having lot of sugar. The sugar will be transported to the various parts of the plant like root or fruit or even flower. In such a way they can able to transport to a lot of far away place. Hence organic food has to be transported to this area. The phenomenon of food transportation from the site of leaf to the various utilization part is known as translocation of organic solid. The term solid denotes the food material that moves in the solution. Now how the food material is transported? With the help of an experiment, we can able to understand that the food material is transported through phloem. As you know very well about the ringing experiment. So this is a ringing experiment. This ringing experiment will be helping us to understand about how the food materials is transported. Look at the picture. So this is a plant, a tuica plant, along with the roots should be take. Here in this picture it is not shown any root. Along with the root you can take it. Take a beaker containing water. Just immerse this rooted plant inside the beaker. Just remove the bark of the stem. It is woody stem plant. A central woody part is xylem. Apart from woody, white color woody part, remaining part is called bark. Just you can remove. This is called girdle. So make a girdle around the stem. Leave it. What will happen? The root is absorbing water from the beaker and it is transported to the various parts of the plant. Then the leaves is kept in sunlight. They can prepare photosynthesis. They can prepare food material. These food materials is transported to the various parts. But Up to here the food will be supplied to all parts of the body, but hereafter it is not able to transport because here it is accumulated. At the lower part of this part it is accumulated here. There is a swelling is up here. The swelling is nothing but the food material which are prepared by the leaf which are stored in this area. It is accumulated in this area. That is why it is swelled. That means the food material is transported up to here. Hereafter it is not moved. That means food material might be transported through phloem. Here the phloem is removed. So the food material might be transported through phloem, not xylem. Only water and mineral salts will be passing through xylem, but the food materials are passing through only phloem. Leave it for some days. So what will happen? After some days, the food material will be written here. The same food material is not supplied to the roots. Then, if the roots are not having food material for its survival, they cannot be able to respire. Then the roots die. Once a root die, they cannot be able to transport the water. Then the plant will be die. So this will be proof that the food material or the solid material are transported through phloem. So this is a ringing experiment or girdling experiment. This will be helping us to understand that what is the direction, how the food materials are transported. From this we can very clearly identify that. So where the food material is produced, these are called as source of food, and where the food materials are used or utilized, they are called as sink of food. So next we are going to see about source and sink. So usually the leaf is an organ which is capable of food material to prepare during photosynthesis. They are called as source of food material. The germinating seeds are also able to produce a food material, hence they are also called as source. If these source of food materials are utilized by various parts of the body like root, tubers, developing fruits and immature leaves, so these are acting like sink, because they are defined as a sink because any organ that which receive the food material which will be called as sink. So both are combined together. This takes place. Now we can able to understand that it is very clear that water and mineral salts will be taken up from the roots through xylem. So all the water and minerals are passing through xylem. Then these water and minerals are utilized by the leaves. Then the food materials are preparing food material. So these are acting like a source. These food materials are supplied to various parts of the plant through phloem. So conduction of water and minerals through xylem and food materials are passing through phloem. So these food materials are loading and unloading. So phloem is acting like loading and unloading process. How it takes place? Loading and unloading process. So movement of photosynthesis, that is starch. Starch is synthesized, or glucose or sugar are synthesized during photosynthesis will be called as photosynthate. So the movement of photosynthate from mesophyll cells to the phloems through sieve tubes or sieve elements. The mature leaf is known as phloem loading. And it consists of 3 steps. How? First, the sieve tubes. Sieve tubes conduct the sucrose only. But the photosynthate is always in chloroplast, mostly in the form of starch or in triose phosphate, which has to be transported to the cytoplasm where it will be converted into sucrose for further transportation. So sucrose moves from mesophyll to the nearby sieve elements by short distance. From the sieve tubes, the sink part like root or fruit have to be used for a long distance. Then phloem unloading. From the sieve elements, Sucrose is translocated into the zinc organs such as root, tubers, flowers and fruits, and this process is termed as phloem unloading. It consists of three steps: sieve elements, unloading, sucrose, relief from the sieve elements. Then short distance transport like movement sucrose to zinc cell. Then the final steps when sugars are stored in metabolized by zincs. Now we are going to discuss about mechanism of translocation. How the phloem cells are conducting this sucrose or the solute molecules or the food materials to the various parts by various scientists. Several hypotheses have been proposed by various scientists to explain about the mechanism of translocation. Some of them we shall discuss now. First one is diffusion hypothesis. According to the diffusion hypothesis, the translocation of food from higher concentration to the lower concentration by the simple physical process. However, the theory was rejected because the speed of translocation is much higher than the diffusion and translocation in biological process, because diffusion is very slow process, but translocation of food is very fast. Hence, this theory is failed. Then activated diffusion theory. According to this theory, the diffusion in sieve tubes is accelerated either by activated diffusing molecule or by reducing the protoplasmic resistance to their diffusion. Another theory is explained, that is electroosmotic theory. This is explained that how the food materials are transported through the phloem. According to electroosmotic theory, an electric potential across a sieve plate is causes the movement of water along with the solute. This theory is also failed to explain several problems concerning translocation. And the fourth theory, Munch mass flow hypothesis. The Munch mass flow hypothesis has been explained in a perfect manner. This will be, most probably, this might be perfect. The model of demonstrating mass flow hypothesis is explained. Look at the picture. In this picture, actually mass flow theory was first proposed by the great scientist who was called as Munch in the year 1930, and elaborately it is grafted by another scientist called as Crafts. According to this theory, the organic substances are solute move from the region of high osmotic pressure to the region of low osmotic pressure along the thermal pressure gradient. The principle involved in this hypothesis can be explained by the simple physical system which have been shown in this picture. Look at the screen. There are two chambers, A and B. So this side there is a chamber, another side chamber B. Chamber A is having high concentrated sugar solution and the chamber B is having diluted sugar solution. The two chamber A and B made up of semi-permeable membrane. So in between these two, there is a semi-permeable membrane. The semi-permeable membrane connected by the tube T. So this tube is called as T tube. Both this is semi-permeable membrane. This is also semi-permeable membrane. Inside the semi-permeable membrane of A is having highly concentrated solution. The semi-permeable membrane of B will be having diluted sugar solution. These are connected by the tube T. These are immersed in a reservoir of water. The reservoir of water is which is having hypertonic solution. The chamber A contains high concentrated sugar solution, while chamber B contains dilute sugar solution. Now, the following changes might be takes place. The high concentration of sugar solution chamber A, it is hypertonic. But on the other hand, the dilute sugar solution B is having hypertonic solution. Due to the, as you know that, the water is hypotonic, it is hypertonic. So, movement of water molecule from the reservoir to the A through the semi-permeable membrane. So, this is due to osmosis. So, due to osmosis, the movement of molecule from the higher concentration of reservoir to the solution A, it is highly concentrated. So, movement of water is moving through this tube A. So, along with the water, some of the food material which are present inside or the solute which are present inside the A is also taken up into the B. Then this will be passing through this reservoir. So, this is a method in which mass flow takes place. So, due to continuous entry of water into the chamber A, there is a turgor pressure is increased in A. So, increase in turgor pressure in chamber A force the mass flow of sugar solution to the chamber B through the tube T along the turgor pressure gradient. Then A is having more turgor pressure gradient, B is having lesser turgor pressure gradient. So, higher gradient to the lower gradient along with the solute, this will be moving towards B. So, the movement of solute will continue till the solution in both chambers are attained stable or isotonic condition. Now, A is hypertonic, B is hypotonic. When both are become isotonic, this movement of solute is continuously takes place. However, the new sugar solution is added in chamber A, the system will start again. In such a way, the continuous movement of water or solute which is taking along with the solvent, solvent plus solute which is making a mass flow. So, this is the mechanism of mass flow hypothesis. It is having some merit. When a woody or herbaceous plant are girdled, the sap contain high sugar content exudate from cut end. The positive concentration gradient disappear when plants are defoliated. It is also having an objection. This hypothesis explains the unidirectional. That means movement of food materials which will be takes place from A to B. But there is no involvement of B to A. But in general, the food travel or the translocation of solute in leaves as well as from root to leaf. So, both way it is bidirectional. But this mass flow hypothesis is given unidirectional. But however, bidirectional movement of solute is commonly observed in plants. Osmotic pressure of mesophyll cells and that of root hairs do not confirm their recurrence. This theory gives a positive role to sieve tubes and protoplasm, while some workers demonstrated the involvement of ATP as well. So, it is high amount of active transport, but it is not explained in this theory. Now, we are going to see about mineral absorption. What is mineral absorption? So, in the previous class, we have seen about ascent of sap, water and minerals through the xylem. Then later on, we had seen about how the food materials are transported from leaves to the other parts. Previously, we imagine and observe that along with the water, the mineral salts are also dissolved and taken place. But this is wrong. Absolutely wrong. Minerals in the soil exist in two forms. Either dissolved in soil solution or absorbed in colloidal clay particles. Usually, we used to thought that in previously, it was mistakenly assumed that absorption of mineral salt from soil took place along with the absorption of water. But absorption of minerals and ascent of saps are identified as two independent processes. They are not combined together. Water and mineral salts will not be combined together. What is going acid absorb is separate. Mineral nutrition, that is mineral absorption is separate. So mineral absorb not only the root hairs but also by epiblema. But previously we have seen that water is entered first through root hair. But here the mineral absorption is not only takes place in root hair but also it takes place in the epidermis or epiblema or piliferous layer, outer layer of the epidermis will be allow the mineral absorption. The plasma membrane of root cells are not permeable to all ions, and also all ions of the same salt are not absorbed in equal rate. The penetration and accumulations of iron into the living cells or the tissues from surrounding medium like soil to inside by crossing membrane is called mineral absorption. That means movement of ions into and out of the cells or tissue is termed as transport or flux. So entry of ion into the cell is called influx and exit out is called efflux. So there are two types of mineral absorption, influx and efflux. So various theories also have been put forward to explain about this mechanism of mineral absorption. They are categorized into various types, namely passive mechanism and active mechanism. Passive means without involvement of metabolic energy. Active means involvement of metabolic energy. One by one we can see. First of all, we shall see about passive absorption. The passive absorption is having ion exchange. There is contact ion exchange theory and carbonic acid exchange theory. There are two theories is explaining about passive absorption. We can look at this picture. This will be helping us to understand about how mineral absorption takes place through passive absorption. Look at this picture. First of all, ion exchange. Ion of external soil solution were exchanged with same charged ions to the root cell. That means anion for anion, cation for cation. Suppose anion is moving from outside the soil to the inside the plant cell. Similarly, suppose if it is anion is moving from outside to inside, then same anion is moving from inside to outside. This is ion exchange. Suppose if cation is moving from outside to inside, the same cation is moving from inside to outside. This is called exchange of ion. So ion exchange theory. So there are two theories I will explain about ion exchange theory. They are contact exchange theory and carbonic acid exchange theory. What is contact exchange theory? Look at the picture. The picture will be helping us very clearly understand that. According to this theory, the ion absorbed on the surface of root cells. Suppose potassium plus ion is absorbed with the root cell. And the clay particle, there is proton, H plus ion is attached with the clay micelles, are not held tightly. They are loosely absorbed but oscillate within a small volume. They can move here and there. They can oscillate. They will not move, just oscillate. And more, they will not fix very strongly. Within a small volume of space called oscillation volume. Due to small space, both ions are overlap with each other. The oscillation volume and exchange takes place. That means the potassium ion is moving to clay micelles, then proton is moving toward this side. Here, look at the picture. So this is called ion exchange theory. This is contact ion exchange theory. Just they are contacting each other. So according to this theory, the ion absorbed on the surface of root cell and the clay particle are not held together very tightly. They are loosely arranged, freely oscillate. They are mutually exchanged. This is called contact exchange theory. Another theory is called carbonic acid exchange theory. This picture will be helping us to understand about carbonic acid exchange theory. According to this theory, soil solution play an important role by acting as a medium for ion exchange. For example, the carbon dioxide released during respiration in the root. The root is also respired. Due to respiration, the carbon dioxide is released. Then the carbon dioxide is dissolved in water to form carbonic acid. Then the carbonic acid is dissociated to produce proton and HCO3 ion. So in such a way, these are producing H plus ion, and the clay micelles are having potassium K plus ion. Then these are mutually exchanged. The H plus ion is replaced by potassium plus ion, which are present in the clay micelles. Then they are joined together, K plus HCO3. So in such a way, carbonic acid exchange theory. So the carbon dioxide released during respiration have the root cells combined with water to form carbonic acid. Then the carbonic acid dissociated into proton and sees HCO3 minus ion in the soil solution. This H plus ion exchange, the cation absorbed, that is K plus ion on clay particle, and the cation from the micelles get released into the soil solution and get absorbed to the root cell. Then they are mutually exchange each other. So these are called as carbonic acid exchange theory. So these are comes under passive absorption. So in these theories, there is no energy is utilized. The second theory is active absorption theory. Absorption of ion against the concentration gradient with the expenditure of metabolic energy is called active absorption. In plants, the vacuolar sac shows accumulation of anions and cation against the concentration gradient, which cannot be explained by the theories by passive absorption. The mechanism of active absorption salt can be explained through various types of theory called carrier concept theory and Donald equilibrium theory. The carrier concept theory is nothing but there is a carrier which can able to fix. This concept of carrier concept theory was explained by Van den Honest in the year 1937. So we can able to understand with the help of a picture which is showing very clearly the active absorption theory of mineral absorption can be explained in the method of carrier concept. The cell membrane largely impermeable to free ion, whether it is plasma membrane or any other membrane which are present. They will not be allow certain ions. However, the presence of carrier molecules in the membrane act as a vehicle. Certain substances which are present on the membrane will be helping to transport these ions. Usually, the ions are not able to move from outside to inside because the membrane is impermeable. But certain protein or certain substances which are present on the membrane will be acting as a vehicle to carry, to pick up these material and binding them to carrier ion, to complex material which move across the membrane on the inner surface of the membrane. This complex breakup or releasing ion into the cell when carrier goes back into the outer surface to pick up another ion. Look at this picture. This is outside, this is inside. So these are the substances, they have to be taken, they have to be sent inside. This is positive ion, this is negative ion. So this membrane does not allow these materials So these are the materials which will be impermeable to pass through this membrane. In such occasions, certain proteins are the substances which are present inside the membrane which will be acting like a carrier, which are acting like a vehicle, which can able to carry the anion and cation along with this carrier and pass on to the other one, then pick up and drop this material and come back to pick up another material. So such a type of carrier protein are the substances which are present inside the membrane will be carrying the substances. Such a type of movement is called carrier concept method. So according to Lundegaard's cytochrome pump theory, there is a huge mass of substances are come across. This was explained by two great scientists who was called as Lundegaard and Boston. In the year 1933, they observed that a correlation between the respiration and anion absorption takes place in plant. When a plant is transferred from water to a salt solution, the rate of respiration increases. This is called as anion respiration or salt respiration. Based on this observation, Lundegaard proposed a cytochrome pump theory. This cytochrome pump theory, which was based on the certain mechanisms called the mechanism of anion and cation absorption, are different. Anions are absorbed through cytochrome chain by an active process, but cations are absorbed passively. So anion is one method, cation is observed by another method. Anions are taken place by active process, but on the other hand, cation is taken place by passive process. An oxygen gradient is responsible for oxidation at the outer side of the membrane and the reduction to the inner side. So in the outer side, oxidation takes place, and the inner side, reduction takes place. In such a way, this ion exchange process takes place by Lundegaard method. This is also called as cytochrome pump theory. So this is outside of the cell, this is inside of the cell. Here, this is cytochrome. So in this cytochrome, various electron acceptors there. Apart from this, they can able to carry anion. In this, when it is carrying anion, they can spend lot of energy. That is why it is active process. But carrying cation, it is easy. There is no energy is used. So this is passive, but this is active process. So both are taken place simultaneously. Here oxidation takes place in outer side and reduction takes place inside. So both inside and outside different types of process might be takes place. According to this theory, the enzyme dehydrogenase, an inner membrane surface is responsible. This is only responsible. The dehydrogenase enzyme which are present in the inner surface will be responsible for the formation of proton. So the enzyme dehydrogenase which are present inside the inner membrane, which will be producing a proton. So this is responsible for the proton, and the electron is released. Here it is also releasing electron and proton. Which one? The enzyme dehydrogenase which are present inside the inside membrane, which is responsible to produce proton and the electron inside. As the electron pass outward through electron transport chain, there is a corresponding inward passage of anion. So the electron is going outside. So there is an inward process of anion is taken place. The anions are picked up by the oxidation. Here there is an oxidation which takes place. The water molecule is split to produce releasing of oxygen. So oxidation takes place. So during this, anion is picked up by oxidation cytochrome, oxidates, and are transferred to the other membrane of the chain as they transfer the electron to the next component. They also transfer the electron and the anion to the next compound. The theory assumes that the cation move passively along the electrical gradient. Due to the electric gradient, that means the cations are having higher concentration outside but lower concentration inside. Due to the electron gradient, this cation passively it is moved. So there is no energy is required to move from outside to inside for the cation. So the theory is assumed that the cation move passively along the electric gradient created by the accumulation of anion and at the inner surface of the membrane. Main defects of this theory was cations also induce respiration and failed to explain about selective uptake of anion and cation. It explained about absorption of anion only but not by cation. So this is a drawback. Another theory that is called Bennett-Clark protein resisting theory. This is also explained about how the minerals are taken place inside the plant. This picture will be helping us. This theory was explained by Bennett and Clark in the year 1956. They proposed that the carrier could be the protein associated with phosphatide and called lecithin. So this is the phosphatide and lecithin. So phosphatide is called as lecithin. The carrier is amphoteric. That means the ability to act as either an acid or base, and hence both cation and anion combines with it form lecithin ion complex. So lecithin ion complex may be formed. So in the membrane, inside the membrane, the lecithin ion complex is broken down into phosphatidic acid and choline. So inside the membrane, it is broken up by phosphatidic acid and choline. Along with the liberation of ions, the lecithin again gets regenerated. The choline is entered into the acetylcholine in the presence of choline acetylase, then choline esterase. Once again, the acetylcholine will be forming lecithin. So lecithin again get regenerated. Finally, we can conclude with this chapter with Donan equilibrium. What is Donan equilibrium? Within the cell, some of the ions never diffuse out through the membrane. They are trapped within the cell and are called fixed ion. But they must be balanced by the ion of opposite charge, assuming that the concentration of fixed anion is present inside the membrane. More cations would be absorbed in addition to the normal exchange to maintain the equilibrium. Therefore, the cation concentration would be greater in the internal than the external solution. This electrical balance are called equilibrium controlled by electrical as well as diffusion phenomena is known as Donan equilibrium. For example, certain anion is present inside the root. These root which are having this anion never be diffused outside or inside. They will be retained in the same place. In order to balance this anion, certain amount of cation should be absorbed from soil through root hairs. Then this cation will be entered to neutralize the anion present inside because they are fixed ion. So in order to balance this anion, some amount of cations have to be traveled through this root. Then it is neutralized. Then it is kept in equilibrium. This is called Donan equilibrium. That's all about this chapter.